Welcome, welcome.
Howdy, how are you?
I'm great. I love that you always ask me because I'm still good.
Because
Thank
our
you.
listeners are wondering how you're doing, Becky.
I want to know
I'm
how are
good
you
too.
doing,
Thanks,
John?
And Julie too.
Juliet.
Sorry.
We're going to Motor City today.
We are.
I'm really
Detroit.
excited. Detroit is in the house today, and we have really kind of a rock star, which is also very Detroit rock. And I am so excited to talk to her today because Shelly Danner is with us. She's with Challenge Detroit, and we're going to get into what an amazing, innovative program this is in the city of Detroit. But I want to give a little bit of background on Shelly because she has my heart because she was working in the for-profit industry and then she came over.
Pivot.
I want to say to the light side, not the dark side, the light
To the
side.
compassionate sector.
To the compassionate sector. And she is tearing it up and doing amazing things in her community, which is a very large community. And so I want to give our listeners just a little bit of background on her. She's a senior leader with business and consulting experience, and she has this passion for impact. So about 8 years ago, she pivoted her career into the social sector, and she really focused on talent and leadership. So she's a co-founder and program director of Challenge Detroit, incredible organization. She's going to dive into what they're doing with the emerging leaders, young professionals of Detroit, and kind of putting them as feet on the streets in missions. It's just going to be such a great conversation. She was also named by Crane's Detroit Business as one of the 2018 notable women in nonprofits.
Ooh.
Congrats, Shelley. That's so awesome.
We need like a cheering track.
And she's also a professor. My
Oh,
goodness.
yes.
How can we leave this out?
I know. Well, John's geeking out because she's got this design background and he wants to take her class too. So, I mean, we're just talking about layers of peeling back the layers of onion that is Shelley. And she just has amazing expertise in design and strategic planning. She has led over 150 community project collaborations with nonprofits across Detroit's neighborhoods, which is so inspiring to me. Born and raised in Michigan, lover of the arts, outdoor adventures, cities traveling, and last thing, asking questions.
Whoa.
I love asking questions too.
I do.
This
And
is
I
going to
love
be a
asking
great
her
conversation.
questions.
Shelley, welcome to the We Are for Good podcast. Can you just kind of fill in the dots of anything we might have left out?
Oh, well, thank you. And it's really fun to be with you today. So thank you for inviting me to join the podcast. And thank you for that introduction. It's kind of a switch for me to be the one answering questions.
Right? Hot
There
seat.
you go.
Hot seat alert.
Instead of asking them, but it's all good. I'm looking forward to sharing my story with all of you.
So you used to work for Accenture. I remember Accenture. I want to say maybe I put in a resume that fell into the abyss of the Accenture HR world back
And
in
I
the day.
remember their logo.
Of course you remember the logo.
Shape, yep.
And so I want to know just about this journey from the for-profit world into nonprofit. And was that a light bulb moment that had immediate impact, or was that sort of percolating over many years? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. It's a great question. And I would say that it took time. It took time for me to take the leap, take the risk, and really leave a very good career at of course, a top firm and a global company with tons of opportunity. And I will say I'm very grateful for my experience, all my years at Accenture, and have certainly used what I learned there as I have been working in the social impact space now for 8-9 years. But I think for me, what I found is that I was working in this really large organization, and there was a disconnect for me in that I felt like I had this desire to contribute in a really meaningful way. And I wasn't always feeling that in some of the client work that I was assigned to. And what I found as I continued year over year, again, getting really great experience and exposure to all kinds of projects and industries, is that I was drawn to more of the exceptional or exception type projects within Accenture. So projects that were supporting nonprofit clients or projects that were smaller, more focused on leadership development, which that's not really the bulk of the work that Accenture does. And then also going internal. So one of the really game-changing experiences I had while I was at Accenture is getting to work on the corporate citizenship team and helping to roll out the first skills-based volunteering strategy in US offices. And that was such an incredible experience, but it was temporary because I was a billable consultant and I needed to go back out and do client-facing work. And so I got to a point where I realized that the work that I was doing was not the kind of standard. It was more of the exception. And I had to be really honest and say, or ask myself, will I be able to continue or always be able to do that type of more meaningful work while it's not most of what people get to do at Accenture? And that really catapulted me into taking a leave of absence. And it turned into a year-long sabbatical, and I didn't go back. Nice. And that's kind of the way that I pivoted.
She went on her sojourn. Yeah, totally. You went on your journey.
I love it because, I'm a designer by trade. So a lot of my friends that, have gifts of being able to be creative and think of things differently, they don't even have it on the roadmap to think about going into a nonprofit. You think about, well, I'm going to go to a firm and do that thing and represent all these brands. But I love your story because you clearly have such a gift and such so much to share with the world that putting that in a nonprofit is just putting it on steroids, because there's such oftentimes an absence of those kind of, high powerhouse folks that want to leave a high paying job to come and serve in this way. So I love that you invested in that way and followed your heart in it into a more meaningful career. So I wonder if you'd share a little bit about Challenge Detroit and the cool things happening there, the fellowship program, and just kind of give us a context of what Challenge Detroit's all about.
Sure, absolutely. So I think, as Becky mentioned, I'm very passionate about leadership and talent and really developing people, supporting people's growth. And then I also have this, real desire to contribute, to be part of making a positive impact. And so I did not know that I was going to end up, launching a nonprofit with some other folks here in Detroit. But when you take a sabbatical, when you do allow yourself to go on that journey and let it evolve and be open to that self-reflection and, trying some things out and taking little adventures and starting to develop new relationships, who knows what can happen.
Right.
I came back during my sabbatical. I moved back to Michigan. My parents are still here just outside the city. And I really wanted to learn about what was going on after all these years of living outside of Michigan, and started going to events and started just, again, really seeking to understand, just having that interest and realizing that there was possibly a way to really contribute. And so this was back in 2012. And so I went to a women's entrepreneurship conference, and at the lunch, I sat next to my now co-partner in this nonprofit of 9 years. And so we started talking. She had been working on this idea with her boss and some others for a while, but they were at that point. Actually, that very week, they had received that check, that funding came through in hand to really move forward. And so 2 days later, I was sitting next to her. We were brainstorming and diving in. And at that point, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep job searching or maybe go back to Accenture or move back to the East Coast or somewhere else. But once I had that opportunity and that realization that I could help launch something, I could be part of what was going on in Detroit, and support other people's leadership growth and providing them opportunities to be in this program I was in. And so here we are, almost about 9 years later. And I'm happy to explain what Challenge to Trade is, but that's kind of like how I got to
there.
Yeah, I mean, we
It's a cool
definitely
story.
want to talk about it because when I started researching it, I mean, it was really a response to this exodus of young talent that was leaving Detroit and Michigan. And people saw all of these young people leaving the city, and they had this entrepreneurial spirit. They had this drive to want to go and serve and be creative. And there were the brain through the brain power and just the innovative nature of you and these founders, you kind of looked at each other and said, okay, how do we bring in the top entrepreneurs, the top entrepreneurial thinkers, and find a way to channel all of this sort of burgeoning talent, into a space that helps our community and makes these kids sort of rooted in their hometown and in a unique way. So that's kind of just framing what I understood. Please take it from there.
Sure, absolutely. That was really a good framing. And I will also say that, we have been at this now. We are so in awe that we have been able to sustain a very small nonprofit for now 9 years. And so things have evolved a little bit, but that kind of initial goal to keep talent here, and to also at that point, because in 2012, there weren't a lot of early career professionals who thought they could, make something or find a livelihood in Detroit. So also to draw them to the city. And so I'll just explain our innovative model for attracting and retaining talent. So we partner with companies in Detroit to create job placements. And it's a 1-year gig. So it's a year-long paid fellowship. And the kind of structure of that is, let's just take a law firm, for example. So you would have a job at this law firm in Detroit, and you would go there Monday through Thursday for a year, and you would do a role there that would help grow your professional development. And then on Fridays, that law firm would support you being out of the office and doing fellowship programming, which is really all about adding capacity to nonprofits and working alongside nonprofits in different Detroit neighborhoods, getting leadership development, cultural immersion, learning about the history of Detroit, social, cultural opportunities, team building, and really, again, getting that immersive experience into the community.
It's so brilliant.
It is brilliant.
I love every piece of this. And if you are someone who loves your hometown, which I would say, even if you don't love where you came from and you're trying to escape your town, there's got to be some connection that puts a soft, tender spot in your heart because you have memories in certain places and you want to see your hometown grow and thrive. And I just think the forward-thinking nature of what you're doing, I don't want to call them kids because these are probably, somewhere from, young 20-somethings or mid 20-somethings that are really trying to find their place in the world. And what do I want to do? I mean, I think about internships I've had in the past, and I was, a PR communications major, and I thought, well, maybe I'll work at an agency or maybe I'll do corporate PR. I did internships there, and I was like, I hate this. I hate it. I need to go into the nonprofit sector because I feel at the end of the day like I'm contributing to something bigger. And so in this example, you can have both. You can kind of see, what's on one side in the for-profit sector and then move into the nonprofit side. And even for those individuals, I would think that want to be in the for-profit sector can still find a way to to be impacted and to get involved in their community. It's just such a brilliant.
It's our generations, like Gen Z and millennials need that give back element to the jobs we pick, to the careers we pick. Even if I have finance major friends and people who are management consultants, and they need that nonprofit give back element. And I'm sure over the years you've learned a lot of leadership hacks for us, because I think people my age, the biggest thing that we're seeking in our careers is connection with people, meaning behind causes, and just advice from people on leadership development and how we can, I don't want to say go up the ladder because that's a bad term, but we're trying to better ourselves to further our careers. So I guess if you're talking to someone my age, what are your top leadership nuggets for us as we're kind of starting in our careers?
Oh, well, I love this topic. And I will say, I am also a leadership coach.
Ooh.
And tons of
What
mentoring.
does Shelley not do?
She's a regular Renaissance woman.
We love to stay in touch with the alumni that have gone through our program. We have over 200 alumni now.
Yes, that's
Nice.
awesome.
Of course. And so I do a lot of career coaching and mentoring, and just it's really, I find it very fulfilling to help other people think through some of those questions that you asked, Julie. So a couple of quick things. So I am really big on reflection and really being paying attention to creating space to do that self-reflection and also reflection with others. And so I do think that that's a very important part of leadership. And I think that the more we cultivate our own kind of unique practice of what works for you. So for some people, it might be journaling. For others, it might be taking a walk in nature, but really tuning into what type of space sets you up to have that self-reflection, and then also making it a practice. So in our fellowship program, we do all kinds of reflection activities after every project that we do. These are the community projects that we do alongside nonprofits. We do individual reflections. We do kind of a team level reflection. So I just think there's a lot of self-awareness that can come from that. I also love lifting up that we are all creative. And so the whole kind of design process that we can use to look at all these social issues and global issues even, we can also, and the design process that we use for products, we can also apply that to ourselves and to our own leadership. And so I love this idea of prototyping, and it's, even something that I kind of did, maybe without calling it as such during my sabbatical, but really designing your own experiments. And that could be to help you form a habit. It could be to work toward a goal. But I think that just applying more of a design, or what I do design thinking, but using that, I think can be very helpful. And then also, I'm like, oh, there's so many things. Which one do I want to pick?
It's hard to pick.
But I would say really developing authentic relationships is so important. And at the end of the day, and I think we're all really seeing this, that, people matter so much. And that is something that I also have thought about a lot, and why I love being in a role and in a space where I'm supporting people's growth, is that it really is all about relationships, and really having deep relationships, connected relationships, and ones that are ongoing.
I love those.
Yeah,
Shelley,
great.
I wonder, we ask a lot about stories on this podcast, and you sharing that you've mentored, so many, I almost said kids, they're not all kids, through this process and teaching your leadership pieces. I wonder if there's a person that stood out to you, maybe that you've walked alongside or mentored, that you would want to share, maybe their transformation, or maybe just what that's been like on the giving side, not just the receiving.
Ooh, that's a good question. And I might need a moment to think about that. But I do just want to kind of validate this point that Julie, you were making about millennials and Gen Zers. And I will share that we've had over 4,000 applicants over, the kind of 8-9 years, and just again hundreds and thousands of individuals who have really been drawn to this innovative way to gain that professional experience, but also to give back in their community. And then I think something that I don't know if this is a specific person, but I think something that has been really important to me and that I'm always keeping at the forefront is what I can learn from others. And especially in Detroit, there are leaders and entrepreneurial thinkers and doers who have been here for decades and generations. And something that's so important, especially when we're doing place-based work and working in communities, is having that respect for the expertise of the residents in a neighborhood, for the business owners, for the the people that have been here. And so for me, there are all kinds of leaders. And so it's not just the CEO or the executive director of a nonprofit. And I think there's just been so much that I've learned from having that humility and listening and asking questions. And I think that our fellows have really, year over year, had that same experience. And I think that is what is so transformative, because and I guess I would ultimately say, I think that's what allows for better collaboration and for better solutions and outcomes. So I think that's what I would say.
And I can tell that your organization is really centered on that because, and we'll put this link in the show notes, but you have got a great section on your website about impact and impact reports and making sure that you can quantify not only the hours contributed, but really tracking the meaningfulness of those hours and the projects that are being harnessed. Talk to our listeners just a little bit about what are these projects, because you have projects that these fellows are centered around moving the needle on in a major way. And I wonder, what's been one that's kind of been the highlight of your career that you've been able to see that's really helped the city?
Wow. It's so hard to choose one, but I will do that for you.
We're not asking you to pick your favorite child, but it's almost like
I
that.
did.
So, okay.
What I really have to say is there's just such incredible work happening in nonprofits in Detroit. And again, now I've had the real honor to work alongside nonprofits that have been in Detroit for decades and decades. Large institutional nonprofits, small nonprofits, newer nonprofits, nonprofits that are led by Detroiters, which is so important.
Yep.
And nonprofits that are working, we've done projects on homelessness and transportation and youth development and community engagement and arts and culture and, environmental sustainability. The list goes on. But the one that I think I would like to share is we did a project partnership with Detroit Public Schools Community District this past fall. And we worked with their family and community engagement team. And they really, so this was part of the kind of administration of all of Detroit Public Schools. And they really wanted to lift up student leadership. And they had this vision. And they said, we would like to create a student leadership conference that would be for all of our high schools in all of the Detroit public schools. And they thought, how would we kind of help the students co-design their own conference? And so that they thought of us, they thought Challenge Detroit would be a really great project collaborator. And so we we really had just an incredible time co-designing what could a student leadership conference look like that is really incorporating the students' ideas. And so we use this human-centered design process, and we do our projects in 6 weeks. And that means only 6 Fridays, because our cohort of fellows are working at whatever company they're placed at for the year, Monday through Thursdays.
So it's not 6 weeks, it's 6 days, really, if you think about it. So
yeah. And so we do a lot of interviews and listening. So we heard from the staff, administrators, principals, parents, students. Our fellows worked in teams, and they did brainstorming sessions with high school students from different high school and different areas of the city. And they came up with this incredible plan for this co-created student leadership conference. And it was just so awesome. I will say that it is postponed because the plan was that it was going to happen in the spring of 2020. And of course, we know that did not happen.
The spring of 2020.
2020, the year that will never end.
Pour one out for spring of 2020.
But we are very hopeful that it will happen in 2021 or 2022. And just a really successful and deeply meaningful project. And, we have fellows in our program that went to Detroit public schools growing up. And so for some of them, they got to reconnect or go back and do student interviews at, a high school that they attended. And just, again, youth are so awesome.
Yep.
And I would say we like to have a variety of nonprofits with different missions in each fellowship year, because we do about 4 to 5 projects a year within one fellowship. But usually every year there's at least one project that is around education or youth development or youth leadership, because we all know that youth are our future.
It's such a great story. And as a former student council nerd from many decades ago who went to a lot of these leadership conferences, I love this idea of engaging, passionate student leaders, because age is just not a factor at some level. Maturity, yes, but it's like sometimes these youth have such brilliant and creative ideas, and if they are passionate, it just seems like such a natural bridge to be able to kind of channel that passion in a way. And at the same time, you're doing what we love so much here at our company, which is like planting seeds of service and philanthropy early on, so that youth can understand that needs to be, part of our DNA as a human being, finding ways to help other humans out, to go into spaces where we may have gifts that there may be a gap. And I love that you talked about self-awareness early on, because if you're a self-aware individual, you can stand up and crane your neck and look around and see where those gaps are and find a way to plug in. And nobody can do that better than a leader who's kind of used to taking charge, and they're probably the ones that are driving the class project and all of those things and doing 90% of the work. So it's such a great way to start. So bravo.
So Shelley, we ask all of our guests, what's your one good thing? And we define that as, a secret for success, a good habit, a hack, something that you could implement today to make an impact in your life or in the lives of others. What would you say? I really want the Jeopardy music.
I know.
How much are the royalties to play Jeopardy's music?
I can always see the wheels turning, and people are like, what am I going to say?
I know.
I would say getting out into nature always helps.
Ooh.
Love this.
Expand on that.
I think, and this, again, I'm kind of coming full circle to my sabbatical, where I left kind of everything that was kind of my routine, my, again, my consulting job, and the living in the city, and moved to the mountains and worked on a ranch and spent a lot of time in nature and got a lot of inspiration and a lot of space to think and listen. And I think that really filled me up. And I think that's something that I think, again, a lot of people right now might be rediscovering or reconnecting with, that giving yourself that space and that connection to nature and the outdoors can actually really energize you to come back and give and do good and bring that that sense of just, peace and inspiration into, that good and that work that you want to do.
That's a great tie back to your first leadership hack, which is just that component of reflection and
creating a space.
And creating space and quiet for yourself. So great one good thing. Shelly, we just enjoyed this conversation so much, and I wonder how people could connect with you and connect with Challenge Detroit. I know you're at challengedetroit.org. Are you on any social media platforms? Which I think you're on all of them because I've looked at them.
Yeah, on all of them. And you can just search for Challenge Detroit on all of them and find us very easily. And then I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. So I would love to connect with anyone over LinkedIn. And I'm just so happy to have gotten a chance to talk with all of you. And thank you for sharing my story. And
we appreciate the good work you're doing. Keep doing it.
We like turning the tables on you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks,
Have
Shelley.
a good one. Thank you.